Happy solstice, everyone. It's Jennifer Nakhai with Juggernauts again. Today we're talking about comprehensive criminal defense, and we have attorney Ernest Stone with us today. How are you today?
Hi, Jen. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much for joining us for this most interesting of all topics. Last time I said I probably wasn't going to be doing another one before the end of the year, and here we are. And here we are. And then suddenly you came up. But last time we were talking about almost comprehensive immigration defense. And then you and I checked in, and it was clear that we needed to talk more about comprehensive criminal defense. So tell us a little bit more about who you are, where you're practicing, and what you've been up to.
I'm a criminal defense lawyer in Beverly. I practice all around Eastern Massachusetts. And comprehensive criminal defense is an idea that when someone has a criminal case, a charge against them, there's probably a reason behind it. And that the case, the criminal charge itself is a part of their bigger life, their whole life. And it isn't their whole life. There are other things going on that are in their life that are related to the criminal case and that the criminal case affects. So what we do in comprehensive criminal defense is we look at the person as a whole person. We look at social, mental health, medical, and developmental and other issues that may be going on in their world. And we try to address those issues also while we're addressing the criminal case. And we try to make a lasting positive impact on the person's life, not just get the case done and over with.
Yeah, I mean, I like that we've been talking about teams and how teams can really push cases along. And it sounds like you've put together quite a team for yourself.
Yeah, so the key to this idea and to getting a good outcome that's going to really make a lasting change for somebody is putting together a team around them, around the client. The lawyer's part of that team, but the team might also involve therapists, drug and alcohol specialists, might involve forensic experts, it might involve medical doctors, any expert professional who can help with a need that the person has in their life. Sometimes it's civil lawyers, it's a housing lawyer, it might be an employment lawyer, it might be a divorce family lawyer, to help address whatever circumstances are contributing to the difficulties in someone's life. And the key to that team is we're all kind of equal. We all work together and communicate together with each other and with the client to get them to a place where they don't have these problems anymore.
Well, I know that my favorite part about working with you is we get to talk about trauma and the law.
Yeah.
Two of my favorite subjects overall. And I know that you have a very unique perspective on
It's a huge subject in the law.
Say that again?
It's a huge subject, particularly in criminal law, but in all law. So many people suffer from trauma and from trauma symptoms. It's so common right now, especially now, but it always has been. And the impact that trauma has on people in their lives it can be very dramatic, as you know, or it can be very subtle. And one of the things that we try to be is we try to be trauma informed and understand that the person we're working with may have a hard time working with us even because of the trauma. That's an initial step we have to take and address. And it's on us to be aware of that and to adjust to make our relationship work.
Well, I just find that working with folks like you who understand what I'm trying to achieve with my client, coming from a place of zero judgment, we'll get a whole lot more done, especially when you're representing them. And what I know about you and what I've seen is that you're a very fierce advocate, and you come from a pretty heavy mental health background and standpoint. to defend your cases. Um, so this is Ernest. He started a practice. When did you start to incorporate this into your legal career? When did you realize that this was what you wanted to do? I know you've shared with me that they were originally, or scientists were studying this originally in New York. And so you've decided to bring us
So
CL.
here's how this evolved. So the idea of comprehensive criminal defense, the way I practice it, and I'm a private lawyer. I'm not a court-appointed lawyer anymore. I was for a long time. I did a lot of that. And this idea really started with the Bronx Bronx Public Defender in New York. They came up with an idea called holistic criminal defense, and they brought into their office and hired housing lawyers, family, child custody and divorce lawyers, therapists, psychiatrists in their office so they could bring a team around people. And they found that they got amazing results in terms of reducing recidivism, in terms of improving people's lives and getting them out of the system. They had amazing results in terms of reduced terms of incarceration for their clients that did wind up going to jail. Their statistics showed that they really reduced the time that their clients spent in jail when they did. That was something that I kind of stumbled across in some reading, and I realized that, geez, that's kind of what I've been trying to do. When I was in law school, I worked in a clinic, and we helped lawyers defending death penalty cases in Virginia. And so much of those cases is about what they call mitigation, explaining maybe why someone did what they did and why, they're not responsible for their actions, or that their actions should not warrant the death penalty because look at what happened to them and what drove their behavior. So a huge part of that was mental health and societal, family, medical influences that people had. And so I started early being aware of that. And I tried to do my practice that way. And then when I stumbled upon the Bronx Public Defender and their idea of holistic defense, I said, geez, why can't we do this as private lawyers? We should be doing this. And then I came to believe it's not only should we have to, because if we're going to really serve people, if we're really going to be advocates and counselors for our clients, we have to be aware of everything going on in their life and how our case fits in that. And so I made the decision that that's how I want to practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm starting to talk to other people about their thoughts about that idea. And we're getting a good response, because I think a lot of private criminal defense lawyers have the concept already and would like to do that. And so we're hoping maybe we can create a foundation, a framework that you can do that kind of work in, that'll help you do it in every case.
Well, for our private lawyers listening, there's the potential of course, making more money if you want to put that incentive out there in that way. But also there's so many more reasons why this works out, especially for the public. And I know you probably get this question all the time, because I do. Why do you work with the criminals? Or why do you work with the perpetrator? Or why do you work with the person who's doing wrong? And what people fail to recognize sometimes is that all behavior makes sense in context. And so I love that you have this idea of creating context for criminal activity, or just to defend people, period.
Can I stop you right there? I want to stop you right there. So I have never thought of myself as working with criminals or offenders or working with defendants. I work with people. Okay, they're just people. And we have a motto here in our office. We have signs hanging up on the wall here that just says everybody matters, to remind us that our clients are people. And when I was doing public defense work, appointed cases, I represented all kinds of people from all kinds of backgrounds, but primarily people from financially stressed situations, poor people, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And and people with mental illness and medical conditions. And, as the years went by and I got to know these people and I worked with them, some of them I worked with more than once, I got to know them as people and their lives and their bigger, their lives beyond the courtroom. And it's the same thing now with my private clients. They're people, they have lives, they have goals, they have challenges. I walk around with thoughts in my head about my day and about my life, and they do too. The people I'm working with are full, wholly developed people, and they have complex lives, and that's how I think of them. So I don't like to say, when people ask me, "Oh, how do you work with the criminals?" I say, I don't. I work with people. Criminals is something that just doesn't really mean much to me. I don't know in my career if I've ever met someone who wakes up in the morning and says, "I'm going to go do crime." I never have.
Ready for crime today.
Yeah, I'm ready to improve my criminal career. Nobody does that.
Always keep improving. I think, just to piggyback off of what you just said, my favorite part of your practice, and this is written down in your paperwork, which I had to take a little snippet so I can share with everyone. The reason I started working with Ernie is because there's a part of his paperwork that says that they work for their clients, and they say, we create fresh starts, we give people new hope, we save careers, we preserve families, we save lives. And then it says, literally, we save lives. And I felt like that was the biggest selling point for me, because a lot of legal stuff is just kind of preserving the way things were before, at least the way I see it. And it can get way more complicated than that. But for therapists who are also watching and work in forensics, this is a wonderful person to refer to and to connect with, because I feel like folks are going to get a very different supportive experience and corrective experience when their lawyer does call them back. And they do know what they're doing before their court dates. And so it can make a big difference for your case, for your client, for society, when we also look at the reasons why comprehensive legal defense works. And I'm going to show the results of the holistic criminal defense from the Bronx that you sent me in a moment.
Sure. Let me say with humility that I mean what we say in that document about we save lives, we save families. But I don't do that alone. That's what the team does, and that's what the client. We give the client the opportunity to do that. That's kind of the beauty of this. I looked back at one point and I said, "What is it we're doing?" And I said, "Geez, there's a client where we because of what we did and the people we put him in contact with, the therapist, the psychiatrist, that saved that family." And I looked and I said, "That woman was suicidal." And we said, "There's something not going right here. Her antidepressants aren't working. We're going to take her to a psychiatrist, to a doctor, and get her a bunch of tests." And they found out her hormones her estrogen was so low that her meds weren't working. And they fixed her meds. They fixed her hormones. Her meds started working. She's not suicidal anymore. And this is a woman that was carrying razor blades around to swallow. That was her plan. So I didn't do that. I just got her the opportunity to get the help she needed. And when we look at it that way in our office, we're helping to save those lives, literally. Sometimes we can't do everything we'd like to do for someone, or they don't want us to, and that's okay too, because ultimately it's the client's choice what they do for treatment or help or what they take from us. But the foundational first requirement of comprehensive criminal defense is that we do a great job on the criminal case in court. So that's the part I know I can contribute. And then the team that we put together for people it saves lives, it saves families, careers, gives people hope, and that's the best part of this job.
I think I'm going to share my screen very quickly. Yes, so that way we can take a look at the key findings, because I think this is going to be important talking point for us. Trying to get it in the middle. There we go. And
So
everything that you're,
this is a study by the Rand Corporation, which is a nonpartisan think tank, and they looked at years of at least a decade of cases in the Bronx Public Defender's Office, and looked and compared that to some other public defender offices in New York City, in the 5 boroughs, and these are the findings they came up with. I think it's the you look at the first thing, the holistic representation prevented more than 1 million days of incarceration.
Yeah.
That's mind-boggling. And if you can replace those days of incarceration with a few days of treatment, or of being with a family, or having hope, what a difference that makes. And you look at the reduced likelihood of a prison sentence by 16%. 16%.
This is all saving all sorts of taxpayer money. If we want to get real capitalist about it,
yeah,
it's like that's the way that you get them to buy in, because all of a sudden,
that's absolutely it. It's saving money.
That's savings, all sorts of.
And one of the things we do that I've found effective is, there are all sorts of court-sponsored treatment program. They call them treatment programs, but vendors that have anger management and substance abuse evaluation, and then all sorts of programs and people they can refer to. I like to put those together ourselves using people we know and trust, meaning providers, therapists, counselors, doctors, and do it in a way that really fits the individual client. And then we can say to a judge, we've put together a program that you're not going to have to pay for. You're not going to have to pay for this therapist and this program and these people. And judges say, well, that's great. It's all set up already. And that's the capitalist argument, right?
Right. But hey, let's use that. So that way we actually use it everywhere and for free. So that everyone adopts this. Let's put it out there that we could save $160 million in inmate housing in a year. But back to reducing likelihood of prison sentence by 16% and actual prison sentences and the length of the prison sentence by 24%, because that's intense and nobody likes to be in there.
Absolutely. And 24%, that could be a year of someone's life, right? That's not nothing. The other important part of this that they found is that all of this was done without harming public safety. It's not like all of a sudden, crime went up. It didn't. And that was something they looked for. The holistic defense model talks a lot about working within the community and knowing the community, and gaining trust in the community, because part of their goal is to benefit the community through this. And, I look at it the same way to some degree, because every client that I help, it helps their neighbors, their family, their friends, their employer, it helps their community. And that's my community because I live here.
Yeah, it makes it safer, right? Because I was going to ask you, what does recidivism mean and what is it and how do we fight it? And at the end of the day, what ends up happening when people engage meaningfully with their lawyer, which will then meaningfully represent them, and if in the event they happen to engage with a therapist or a case manager that's helping them with other issues like health insurance, housing, a housing lawyer, even when you're in the middle of getting evicted and you're also going through your trial, it could be incredibly helpful. And I like that this specific model, the first one shows the attorney being kind of like the center of attention and the one who's got to handle everybody. But when we look at the holistic defense model, you see that that the person is at the center, and it also depends on their actions what the outcome of their cases
Yeah.
are going to be, right?
Yeah.
Like, did you go to therapy? Were you meaningfully engaging with
Yeah.
were you responsive to your lawyer?
And that's important. I've had very few clients who have refused to participate or refused to do counseling or so whatever. And sometimes it's because, hey, this will help our case, right? But a lot of the time they get involved in whatever it is I'm suggesting, and they find out, oh, this is great, it's going to help my case, but you know what? It's helping everything else in my life too. And what I see frequently is, we'll get someone involved in some sort of program or some kind of substance abuse treatment, or we'll get them connected with some social workers or whatever it is. They stay with that after the case is over, after we're done with court, after, if there's probation involved, after probation's over, because they're not doing it just to please a judge or just to please me. They realize, hey, this is for me and it's helping. And sometimes we'll try 2, 3, 4 different therapists before we get the connection. And the people that I on my team, the people that I refer to, understand that could happen, and they're not offended by that.
Those are actually regular, normal numbers. Like, that's a regular amount of times to look for a therapist.
Well, you try to do that in a court program, and it's not going to work, because then you're being oppositional, you're being defiant, you're not cooperating, and it's just not realistic. One important part of this comprehensive criminal defense idea, Jen, is that it's the cultivation and maintenance of a network. I put a lot of work into meeting and working with other professionals who I can refer my clients to, who I trust, and who I would go to, or who I would refer family to, because the reality is there's uneven quality in lawyers, in judges, in therapy, in everything, right? So when I want to know that when I send one of my people to someone, I'm sending them to someone who's, a top shelf all-star, who I can trust. Now, maybe the relationship doesn't work. That happens. That doesn't mean anything about the therapist or the client. But I want to have another person that I can say, all right, that didn't work. Go see this one. Let's try this one. And finding like-minded professionals who care about people and
literally care,
who literally care about the person. They don't just give it lip service. Is a big part of this, and it's frankly a fun part, because I get to meet really interesting, really dedicated folks like you, who just make me look good, which is not a bad thing either.
No. I mean, thank you so much for trusting us with your folks. It is fun to work with you, and let's get down to the real business. Okay. For people listening who probably have representation right now are thinking, oh, great, this is wonderful. Does it cost $1 million?
Yeah.
Does it?
So it doesn't cost $1 million. So I'm privately hired. I'm not court appointed. Mm-hmm. So it can be expensive. It depends on the case. But it's like any other professional that you go to see. Some you have to pay for out of pocket. Some you have insurance for. Some they're government programs that'll pay for it. When you go to hire a lawyer, it's going to cost money if you're hiring someone privately, and that's reality. And it should, frankly, because what you want me to do is be as dedicated to you and put as much time into you as you deserve. And every single person that comes in my door deserves 100% of my attention. I can't give everyone 100% because that just doesn't make sense. But when someone's working with me, they become, we say it here, one of our people. And, we are fiercely dedicated to protecting them and helping them. So we don't have a price list. Some places do. Because frankly, when you're doing this kind of work, a lot depends on the circumstances, what's involved. What we do have, though, are options for payment, different ways people can pay us. There are even some options to borrow money. We found some places that will loan people money for legal fees in a reasonable way. And we do payment plans and that kind of thing. Lawyers are expensive. And that's why it's important to make a good choice.
But you get what you pay for, so you better get the best one.
Yeah. What I'd like to see is this idea, this comprehensive criminal defense idea that we're trying to build. I'd like to see that incorporated specifically in the appointed lawyer world around here. That's a discussion for another day. But there are some people who are fantastic appointed lawyers who are working this way, and those are the people that that get it, and that have a good reputation. Who have people will say, "Boy, that person really helped me." But for us, our financial model is that is flexibility. We want to work with people on how they can pay us, so that it's available to all kinds of people.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I think the mission is wonderful because the whole point is to get people out of trouble and for them to stop getting in trouble, right? Because then once they come to you, you set supports in place where they no longer have to be in the same position anymore. They no longer feel fearful of this or needing of that. And they would have people on an ongoing basis, even if there's nothing legal going on. I know I've had a number of some of my favorite clients in my life that came to me for real strict reasons, and they had to come see a therapist, and it was mandated. And then by the end of the mandate, all of a sudden it's like, you know what? I kind of like the structure of coming here, and I kind of like that. I kind of like my lawyer. I don't know. What am I going to do without you guys?
They say, would it be okay if I keep coming even though the case is over?
Whatever.
And that's the big win, right? That's when I feel like, boy, what a great thing we were able to do. We connected them with someone that's really going to help them on an ongoing basis. It's not just about the case. Unfortunately, the criminal court is where a lot of people first encounter any kind of mental health, even general medical assistance, or substance abuse treatment, or even a lot of other social support. It's when they're the first time that they're able to talk to someone who can give them good information, real information about that's reliable about child custody, about their if you want to divorce an abusive partner, they're not going to take your kids away, or whatever the narrative is. And so we often are sort of the triage for people in a lot of ways, and that's a big responsibility, and we need to take it seriously as lawyers.
I love that. I love that because that's almost how I describe social work to me. Like being a bridge. And I know in the early forensic work that I was doing, there wasn't a lot of medical involvement, unfortunately, because in prisons, that part is, seriously lacking. Yep, I said it. And when I was able to do my forensic work then in the community, within a primary care setting, how beautiful is it then to be able to have your primary care doctor and your therapist in a one-stop shop? Maybe you're getting substance abuse treatment And so that primary care integration or co-location, right, when they're at least working together, they don't have to be in the same place, but they're at least working together and they're aware of one another, is the ideal for any regular human being. And this is, I mean, the best evidence-based method that we can bring you. And so then when we hear about lawyers who are also doing this, is thank you so much, Unicorn.
I hope I'm not a unicorn. I hope
Definitely you are.
I hope I'm just a regular donkey, and all the other donkeys are doing the same thing eventually. I want to say something else too. This is not what I'm talking about, and is not just about poverty. That sure, people in poverty, and there are a lot of people live, especially now, who don't have enough to eat or a place to live. But this is not just about them. There are people in wealthy communities, in families that have all sorts of resources, who have never had access to mental health, and are living in pain or in substance abuse or in abusive situations. I mean, that's something else that we haven't touched on, but I have clients who come in and they're victims, and we need to get them out. And it's, sometimes we do pick you up in the middle of the night on the curb, and that's how you're going to get away. And, let's go see the lawyer about, filing a restraining order and that kind of thing. But it's not just about, poor or rich or dark or light or anything like that. This is a societal problem that we have. And I'll circle it back to trauma. The big common denominator, the one thing that I see in almost every single person, is some degree of trauma, and trauma symptoms of being a trauma victim. And when I ask people, and I often do early on in representing them, like, have you had any trauma in your life? They say, well, no. My dad and mom used to fight a lot, and he used to beat her up, but nothing happened to me. It's like, well, okay, there we go. Now we're off talking, because but people don't understand what that means. A lot of folks, they think, well, I'm not a combat veteran. I wasn't in a plane crash.
I didn't lose a limb.
I haven't been raped, so I guess I'm not. And that's not the case, right?
And we're all going through trauma right now. Look at us.
Right now, we're all experiencing ongoing repetitive trauma every single day with this COVID-19.
Complex trauma. Damn.
Yeah.
But we're good together, so we're good.
Yeah, and it's real. I mean, we kind of laugh about it, but the baseline level of anxiety in society right now is really high, and people are really on edge.
Judging by the amount of phone calls I get a day, I can confirm right now that yes, this is
yeah. Well, that's
the lowest level of care out of all of it.
Yeah.
So the hospital's worse.
Right.
Care clinic's worse.
Well, as is the court, because the courts, the criminal court, is a reflection of society, and at times like this, you see people that you wouldn't normally, or in other circumstances, necessarily see there, because something significant and different is going on right now.
That's a really good point. Let's put this example out there very quickly. I know we're going to wrap up soon, but let's say that you lose your health insurance. You were working, you got laid off because of the situation, and you lost your health insurance. Then you lost access to your medications that were keeping you pretty balanced and feeling good and connected to your family. And suddenly you stop maybe sleeping, eating is off, your social interactions are starting to suffer, until suddenly one night you're under the influence and something happens where they call the police and they took you in.
Yep.
So this is exactly how something very simple can turn into something very complicated very quickly. And that's just one of millions of examples.
I've had 2 calls like that today.
Today.
2 of those. One is a father and son, and one a grandfather and a granddaughter. And I'm convinced neither of these people would have been in this circumstances if there hadn't been job loss, loss of insurance, can't see my doctor, can't get prescriptions, and therefore I'm going to self-medicate.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's someone that really cares about them says, "Hey, you need help," and it turns into some kind of confrontation, or somebody calls the police thinking they will help.
Yes.
This person needs help. Maybe the police can help, and the police, that's not what they're there for. They don't do help in non-violent crisis situations. That's not they can't do that. So what happens is someone winds up getting arrested.
Right.
Yeah.
All behavior makes sense in context.
I love that phrase.
Heinous of crimes.
I love
Always, there's always context to it, and it always makes sense when you look at the person's trauma history and how they're feeling. And apart from sociopathic traits and stuff like that, because that's a whole other show.
Yeah, right. Well, let's talk about. We could do a whole nother show on social media and politics right now.
Oh my God, I would love to. Right? Sign me up.
It could do hours on that and what that's doing to people, right? And that's led. I've got cases where that's led to criminal stuff, and now we're in court, and people say, "How the hell did I get here?" Pardon my language, but well, I got angry. I've been angry for 6 months, I guess, and I just couldn't take it anymore, and that's real too.
Yes, rage. We're seeing a lot of rage. Well, Ernie, what is the best way for people to reach you?
There are a few ways they can reach me. They can call us. You can find me on our website at herneststone.com. You can email at es@herneststone.com, my initials, ES. You can call us at our office number 978-969-2890. You can meet me in an AA meeting too.
Look at that.
How's that?
If you want to submit questions to the show, or you would like to be a participant, you can always reach us at getaeonhelp.com or getaeonhelp@gmail.com. And Happy New Year!
Happy New Year!
Solstice!
End of 2020.
That's it. We're almost out of this.
Almost
we
there.
Almost made it.
We can make it.
Thank you, Ernie, for being here with us today.
Thanks much. Be well.